Oh, God. Okay. All right. We are officially starting. Crystal, thank you for agreeing to let me share your experience with others, because I do think we need to kind of warn them that you're sort of the canary in the mine about what's to come. Can we start over at the beginning? Like, you got into what part of the industry? I mean, how did you start out in the shall we say, adult industry?
Well, I started out coming from Southern California, and I would say 1990. I started dancing in clubs, which, you know, I think dancing in a club is just like an open window to other things. What I found was dancing in a club, the next thing, it's just all about exploitation. Everyone that you meet sees you as a sex object. So whether it's, hey, let me take your picture and get you in Playboy, do you want to come back to my room for the night for $2,500? Do you want to make porn? Like, that's what you meet. So
right,
it's just kind of a gateway. And in my, I guess my personality, I just didn't care for the strip club scene because I'm not a cigarette smoker. And the people that I met there were just, let me help you get out of this. Or there was a couple, let me help you get out of this, but most of the people were interested in hiring you for a night. Let me send your photos off to Playboy. Let me do this. Let me do that. And so I would say from the strip club, my next venture was, you don't belong here. You should come and work for me in this escort service. And that's what I did. And I ran offices for multiple people that owned escort services until I realized, why do I need them? I'm the one running the office, making hundreds of thousands of dollars for them every year, and they treat you just like crap. So I decided to venture off on my own, and that lasted for 15 years or so. I had my own escort service, and then landed myself in a lot of legal trouble, which none of it made sense to me.
What happened when you say legal trouble? What happened?
Well, it just started one day when I got a call that my office was being raided by the FBI, and from that point...
That was your first warning?
Yeah, I had never done anything wrong. I was a licensed, legitimate business for 15 years, and the odd thing with me is that I wasn't socializing with people in the industry. I never, ever... It was actually very hidden. In fact, most of my friends were Metro officers and things like that. So nobody
Most
ever knew
madams I've ever known don't really hang out with other women in the industry. You do tend to be very private.
Yes, I was very, very private. I didn't have any friends in the industry. And so no warning, no reason, no rhyme. I think it all started with the financial changes in the...
Like what?
I think around 2008 when the economy fell apart, the big banks were being frowned upon because I know a lot of porn industry people and porn actresses, strippers, everyone was having their credit lines pulled. They were being denied bank accounts. It was like we were all labeled as morally poor, I would say, because the government was judging us. And I think,
but again, you had a legal licensed business, and they still did this.
Oh yes, and I paid taxes for 15 years on that business, so that's what makes it even more, mind-boggling how all of this happened.
But despite that, you wound up with an FBI raid. Despite being legal and paying your taxes, you wound up with an FBI raid.
Yeah.
Not even a warning, just bam.
Yeah, no warning at all. I mean,
oh my God.
Things were just, it was a time when things were just really fast. The adult industry, especially here in Vegas, was just saturated with, escorts, and everywhere you turned, websites and Backpage and Craigslist and all of this stuff. But I think a large part of it, too, was that the industry had changed because now we had so many predators and child trafficking and human trafficking and all of this crazy stuff that I had never heard of before. And I guess maybe I was uneducated at that time, so if you don't know about it, you don't want to know about it. It was easy to turn a blind eye.
Well, yes and no, because, I've been on all levels of the industry, and even though I've been out, I'm still connected to all levels of the industry through, Sex Workers Anonymous. So I'm seeing the changes, and I'm seeing that there are those horrific things that they talk about. They are, but do they touch upon, like you just said, did you see any of this stuff? No, because that type of clientele and that type of person is not going to have a licensed escort service. You know what I'm saying? Right. It's just, they don't touch each other, and that's why I liken it to the food industry, because you're going to have the 5-star restaurant in the food industry, and then you're going to have this poor woman from Mexico selling tamales in the Walmart parking lot to you out of her purse. It's a wide variety of situations and people within the industry itself. And you also keyed on something, is that you got targeted when the market was getting really flooded and saturated with newcomers that were independents, what I call independents, especially Vegas. I remember seeing a sign around 2008 about 400 porn stars at the AVN in Vegas, and I was just bowled over because I can remember when they were lucky to get 10 women to get up on stage of the AVN. I was just like, what, And believe it or not, I was a lot closer to people than most people realize in an odd way with Dennis Hoff, because Dennis Hoff would talk to me about the fact that these independents were competition to what he was doing as a legal licensed brothel. And he considered them either you were working with me, I'm the one paying the taxes and taking all the heat, right? Or, he worked with Metro to get a lot of these independents shut down. And I hate to say it, but you might have been viewed as a competitor to what Hoff was doing. But if Hoff had come out saying that he wanted to shut down the competition, it would have been frowned upon. Because what I found out the hard way was a lot of this trafficking nonsense that was being used to justify shutting down people that were competition to the legal brothels was done under the guise of, look at these poor, horrific things, and because it was just marketing strategy. And believe it or not, they have the same attorney that the tobacco industry has. And I don't know how much you know about the marketing of tobacco, but I remember when they did a child campaign in the 60s going around trying to prevent children from smoking, and it was completely geared to fascinate children with the product. It was so reverse psychology, forbidden fruit, it was insane, Yeah. And were they lying about their product? Hell yeah, they went up to Congress and lied. So is Dennis Hoff going to be telling the truth about his industry? Absolutely not. And is he going to be coming out square saying he's going to be shutting down his competitors that are perfectly legal and licensed? Hell no. So he had to come up. Him and Joe Conforti actually cooked up this whole trafficking act, because I don't know how much you know about Joe Conforti, but he actually went to the Pope and started talking about how legal brothels needed to dominate the industry to protect the women from being taken advantage of, and he would talk about the horrors that they talk about with the trafficking industry to get the church behind trying to shut down the independents and push for legalization. You see? So I think, honestly, it was a turf war that you got caught in on that's getting bigger.
Yeah, it could be, but I don't think they're going to stop at that. I just find it really odd that there's over 2,000 licensed escort businesses just on the West Coast alone, and suddenly you become a target. One has to think, what is really going on? And honestly, I think that being a woman in the industry, as an owner and manager of a service, probably was a big factor in it as well.
Of course. I mean, how many men did you see being treated like you in this?
Never. But I don't think that they liked me, and I always kept to myself. Like I said, I did not associate myself with those people, and so I was kind of always on the outs, I would say.
Mhm. Independent. Yeah.
So I think that probably helped the helped the investigation along quite a bit. The curiosity of where did she come from and who are her investors, because I did know that a lot of men had multiple partners in their businesses that own large companies.
Mhm. Anything you want to talk about?
Not particularly, but what I would like to touch on is the fact I was listening to another interview that you did, and where you talked about the chicken or the egg, which came first. And I can't speak for all females, coming into the adult industry, because I didn't suffer with an addiction per se. Mm-hmm. But I do agree that the adult industry itself, the money, all of that is the addiction. It can be the addiction. It doesn't have to be drugs, alcohol, or sex. It can be money. And I think largely that's where I got caught up was.
I agree with you. I felt like my primary addiction, absolutely, because I wasn't drinking or doing drugs either, was the industry and the money. It just that quick money, and then all of a sudden you get thrown into, it's not just an economic change, it's a whole other world, isn't it? I mean, tell me about, you went through this case, and all of a sudden, you honored what they did. You left the industry, and don't tell me that transition was easy, what was it like for you?
But it was not easy. Learning how to be just a very practical person after you've had, money in excess that you didn't give thought to much, But the transition itself is not easy. In fact, I think you have to be a very well-balanced person to even understand the downsizing that has to take place.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard for a lot of people. It's very ego-busting, I think. Or in a woman's case, they call it the she-go. It's like your she-go just gets tucked away. Tuck your tail and just do what you have to do. But ultimately, I found myself happy. I'm at peace, and being able to put all of this behind me is going to be a really nice thing.
Mhm.
Because it's been stressful. It hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy on my family for sure. And I will say this, it's the first time in my adult life that I have been able to shut off my phone at night and just go to sleep. And that has been amazing, because at 50 years old, I really need my sleep.
Yeah, I hear you. Turning off the phone, I know, was a learning process for me. And now, you also keyed on something about why I felt like there needed to be a group like we've got, because, I did find that there were a lot of the levels where there was a mixture of addictions, that they did have the drug and alcohol problem, they did have the economic problems, and they're in the shelters. And I understood that. They got that covered, because when I was coming out of the business, I hadn't touched a drug, I hadn't drunk, I didn't live that, I'm living supposedly very well, and all of a sudden I'm going through this horrific change that no one seems to know what I'm going through or why I'm complaining. And, just all the adjustments, difficulty sleeping, the difficulty adjusting to the financial adjustments that you go through, even the thinking that I had to change. It was just such a huge process. I was lucky to, believe it or not, come across some ex-drug smugglers that were able to help me with the transition out of the lifestyle. And that's what made all the difference. But then I'm looking back going, well, did I have to get to the point where I was completely burned out and on the street to get help? Why did I, have to, why was there nothing for, people like us, in other words, And that's what I'm trying to get at. It's sort of a non-religious thing where, no, we're not going to go into a shelter, but we still need some kind of help adjusting. Just support even, you know?
Yeah, the resources are very minimal. I will tell you that, being caught up with the government, the only thing that I was told really was, you can't do that anymore, or you will pay these very severe consequences. So you better make some changes quickly.
Right. But when you ask them, like, how, because I did, I'm like, how? And they just looked at me, well, here's this drug program, And they looked at me like I had three heads when I said, but I don't use. And I know I'm not anomalous. I mean, you're going through something similar to what I went through 35 years ago, you know?
I will tell you this. I think they find us very interesting. Because
they sure do.
most normal people, most normal people who don't live in Vegas or don't live in LA, they're housewives, they don't even think that this exists. I mean, I'm sure their husbands are the biggest customers, but they don't even realize that this lifestyle exists or that it's real. And that in itself, it's its own, limitless euphoria, because so many people want to know what it's like. And I mean, it has its highs and its lows, but ultimately coming out of that lifestyle, I'm a lot happier. I like being a simple person. I like now that not my entire life is based on money and nice things. I'm just simplicity is okay, and I'm fine with it. And I think it's been a humbling experience, and I'm happy that I've transitioned. I get up every day and I go to work and I just do things honestly, but the most rewarding part of it is self-gratification and the fact that I don't have to hide who I am. So I can talk to my neighbors.
Right.
I have nothing to hide.
Well, you also had that I know it's a huge adjustment for me. Is I had no idea, because I got into business very young, and I had no idea that my perception of men was based on the type of men that I was around being in that business. And then when I transitioned, I initially changed into being a paralegal. So all of a sudden I'm in the legal world, and I was around totally different men that I didn't even know existed. I mean, it brought me in contact with a whole other group of people that I don't. In fact, I hate to say this, but I have found that those people that I associate with out here in the so-called straight world, I mean, if they were to hear that I was in any way involved in that industry, they would just stop talking to me. That just how much they shut you off when you're. But then the perceptions from media is when I talk to them about what they think, it's all this media stuff that's been geared around trafficking. That these in other words, they don't have an accurate image of what someone like you and I are going through.
Yeah. I will say this. I mean, like I said, I didn't socialize much with the ladies in the industry or anything like that, but I was very, very aware that there were pimps, and I was aware of what the girls were doing. I'm not in denial. I never pretended to be in denial about that. But what I noticed as time progressed, it became almost like a fad, where it was loud. Like, it wasn't hidden. In the beginning, it was very hidden. And then it was like you could pick them out. They were everywhere. It was such a just widely open known thing that these guys were pimps, and they had these ladies, and they had girls in the strip clubs and girls in the services and girls freelancing in the hotels. But what really went crazy is that they just became so very aggressive with the ladies. It was different than it was in the 80s, I would say.
Absolutely. I don't know where the aggression came from either. I can only theorize that I think the mess that seemed to become more popular might have had something to do with it, because it does make you more aggressive. And it did seem to be more dominant among the pimps that I was hearing about.
Yeah, it's really, really crazy, because when you own a service, the last thing you want to do is send some girl who's all knocked up with bruises, out anywhere. So when you would see that, or you would hear of it, you would say, hey, there's a problem. Like, you've got to cut this girl off. You can't use her. That's just bad business, right? But the craziest part about the whole thing is that not once do I recall a girl coming into the office, which was a very safe place, and saying, hey, I need help. Can you help me? Can you call Vice down here? Not one time did I ever have that. So
see, that's different for us, because when I was in that situation and a girl would show up to work I had an indoor theater where you would pay for a half hour to watch an adult film. This is when VCRs were first coming out and big screens were first coming out in the 80s. And so I had a theater license, and you would come watch an adult film in a private room with a nude hostess, and the sex was free. Okay, so when the women would show up for work and they'd be black and blue, they would just look at me like, well, what choice do I have? Because they're living with the man. And I'm like, I can put you up in my apartment if you want to leave. And this is where I began to get in touch with what I feel is the addiction, is because I would take them I had another apartment that I used that I would let them go stay at, and I would say to them, we had bars up and security cameras. I would say, I can keep him away from you. He doesn't know where this apartment is. You're fine now. And I just lock him out. And what I found is that within 3 days, they were back. I mean, that mystified me. That's when I would hear these horrific stories, and then I'm like, why are you going back? Now, honestly, this is when I had been studying on my own about brainwashing, and think neuro-linguistic programming was starting to come out big then, and Tony Robbins was talking about it, and, but I was learning from his teachers. So, I was like somehow geared into this groove about learning brainwashing at the same time I was seeing this going on. So as part of my training, so actually, training to become an NLP therapist, along with Tony Robbins, which is weird. I went another, is that I found to be a certain element of brainwashing that without that sort of intervention of that, they, 3 days later, they're just calling me up saying I went back, and can you come pick me up and take me to the hospital again? And I couldn't understand it otherwise. It just, but when you understand the brainwashing, you understand that they're experiencing impulses that they don't even understand, to go back. Like an addiction. I mean, I hate to say it, but casinos very well know about this brainwashing with the noises and the sounds and the smells. You do undergo a certain form of it, even in casinos, to make you come back, Yeah,
like they have no clocks in the casino. They want you to just lose track of time and just overindulge in everything that they offer.
Now, one thing I think may be the difference also about why maybe they stopped asking is this is something that I saw changing from my time when the women would say, get out of here. They seemed to be mystified why they would go back. Now, when I started doing like the brainwashing interruption, which if anybody ever watches Darren Brown on YouTube, he's got some neuro-linguistic programming and deprogramming. How you can deprogram someone. Most demonstrations I've ever seen of these techniques. Anyway, what I started noticing is in my day, underground, attributed the outside, and infiltrate business and take over. And as of this moment, I know quite a lot of police-owned, because again, Dennis Hoff and Joe became very tight with, the Nevada police and some of the businesses or their partners. I mean, I know a strip club officer. So, I mean, it's different now. The girls that I'm talking to, have said, I didn't even bother asking for help because I knew that the minute I came to help, I'm going to come in contact with law enforcement, and they're part of what I'm trying to get away from. And stimulate them. Some, not all. There's some wonderful, fantastic law enforcement officers that are godsends and blessings and have saved lives. But I mean, I don't know who they are initially, so I have to take precautions until we do know who they are and what side they're on to sort of insulate them from law enforcement, if that makes any sense.
That could have been part of the brainwashing with the girls, is that all police are bad police.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. That's part of the brainwashing, because I had an incident. I had an incident myself where I had a police officer here in Nevada who was involved in this, chained me to a refrigerator in his house. And he waited till his brother, who was another police officer, took 5 women and paraded them around in front of me to show that I was helpless. And they joked that they could leave me in the desert anytime they wanted. And I could see immediately what they were doing was that they were teaching these women, that they were showing, you go to Jody for help. You know, look what we can do to her anytime we want with our badges. And my heart just sank, because I knew that those women would never feel safe reaching out for help again after that. You know, 2 police officers joking about don't even bother calling for help. My heart just sank, you know, because I know that was a highly unusual situation and that there are ways to get out. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. But, of course, you're going to convince them.
They're really trying to clean it up. They're smacking life sentences down on these guys now. But I don't know that it's really the answer, because what I feel that what the answer would be is rehabilitating the women and showing them that there's more to it. There's more to life, and just some positive reinforcement, because they're screwed up. If you take a woman from her pimp and suddenly she's safe, it's only a matter of time before she goes out and leeches on to another one.
Yeah, because that's what I saw when I tried taking steps of scaring off some of these pimps. You know, I had other people that liked these girls and would go pay the pimp a visit, and he would leave town. So I thought that would solve the problem, and you're absolutely right. They would just go and replace him with another pimp within a matter of days if we didn't get to the original problem. And that's when I began to make the addiction connection. I mean, people argue addiction compulsion, I don't know, but there just seems to be like you need some extra help to break the cycle, if that makes any sense, you know? Now, you also hit on something that is actually an NLP technique, is that I would look around and I would want to see someone who left the business and was successful. And I would ask around, do you know anyone who's retired? Do you know anyone who's left this business? And all I would get would be, oh, yeah, they're back in 6 months. Oh, back in 6 months. I mean, that's all I didn't see it. And so one of the things I try to strive to do with my own life is show them that, you know, I'm happy and making money and doing just fine out here now. And, you know, I'm not back in 6 months. And that's one thing that I felt you could be a very strong role model, is that you built a really good, happy, solid life. And, I mean, just seeing that is going to let them know it's possible. You know, it's like climbing Mount Everest. You're not going to believe it's possible unless you see it, you know?
You know, here's the thing that a lot of people tend to do is they let their mind trick them. And I tell people, if you say you can't or if you say you can, you're right. There's no wrong answer. You're right. It's totally your own mindset. Don't think about it. Just do it. That's what you have to do. You take that first step, and then you take that second step and that third step, and you just keep going, and you never look back.
Oh, you know what's funny?
I tell people all the time, I would rather work my ass off daily than go back to that horrible life. Well, not that I could now. I'm 50 years old, but that would not be a great life.
Right.
Nor was it ever. It was never. All I had was money. I didn't have happiness.
Well, even, you know, it's funny how there was some moment I had where I had some gear stuck in my head that the only way I was going to make money was this industry. It was somehow stuck in my head until my sponsor at the time the person who really was giving me that emotional, moral support to get out and help me envision it, is she said to me, like, Jody, wake up. The really, truly wealthy people in this world are not in this business. You know, are they? He goes, name me the, like, top 5 wealthiest people in the world. And I'm like, and he's going, are they in this industry? I'm like, oh, my God, he's right. You know, I mean, that's when got me, if it is about money, it's not here. You know?
Yeah. No,
it's
not that kind of money.
No, it's not that good, you know. Not when, you know, if it really is about money, he was right. The real top wealth in this country is not in the adult industry. You know? I mean, I remember, it's funny, I feel bad, so bad at this one story. We used to do a lot of outreach, a lot of physical outreach before Dennis died up at the brothels. And there was this one woman who said, oh, do you all that we out of this with a penny in our pocket? Never, ever we with any change. I don't know if the government sees it or never seen anybody, whatever, that sees if with the money.
Are you there?
Okay, are you there?
It's me.
Oh, sorry about that. We got booted. Okay.
Fine.
Oh, to finish up where we were, I'll just edit the whole back together. Sorry about that. Was that, you know, so she just, you know, was saying to me how she had built up this $1 million portfolio and to retire when she hit 50 with $1 million in her portfolio. And I mean, I truly wished her luck. And in the back of my mind, of course, I'm like rooting for her because I had never seen anybody walk out with any money. I mean, maybe they exist, maybe they're the white elephant, but I never saw them, right? So sure enough, oh my God, it was devastating. She got her portfolio run off with Bernie Madoff. And she wound up at 50 having to start from nothing. And I mean, she went through a pretty bad period of time, as you can imagine, at 50, being devastated. Anybody got devastated by Madoff, went through a horrific time. It wasn't just limited to, you know, somebody in the industry, but it just, you know, seemed like God. I don't know if there's something spiritual behind this or what. I mean, would you say, because I know myself, the spiritual quality has changed, you know. And
I would say that for sure. Spiritually, it's almost as if not all money is good money, and easy come, easy go. As fast as you make it, as fast as it could disappear. It's very risky. So they can't take what you worked hard for. That's, you know, that's just how it is. I agree with you on that one.
So you feel more secure, it sounds like now.
Oh, I absolutely do. I have far less worries. And like I said, I rest easy at night. I don't have to sleep with one, you know, ear on the phone waiting to find out that some client hurt a girl or, you know, the police are at the door because somebody robbed a client. I don't have to worry about. I don't have those worries. My worries today are a lot less complicated, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good to hear. So if anybody's listening who's thinking about leaving the business, what would you want them to know from you? Like the you from years ago, what would you want to know?
Peace of mind is priceless. You can't put a dollar on the value of it. It really is. Joy is priceless. And you will find no joy chasing money. You find none, because it's just a whirlwind of greed, a nonstop whirlwind. That's all it is. I mean, yes, it's nice to have the stability that having money brings you, but at the same time, that money that comes from illegitimate, ways, it's not so blessed.
Mm-hmm. And even though it was legal, because, the argument that I hear out of a lot of the people is, well, as long as I'm running a legal business, it's the same thing. You were running everything legal, and it wasn't the same thing, though, was it?
Well, here's the thing. I could have spent, my whole life fighting the case. But what was I proving? What was I there to prove? I wanted out. I wanted to be done. I wasn't happy in the business. It wasn't something I was proud of. I just needed a means to the end, and that was it. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, well, this is over. Now I have to focus on something else. Because
even though they threw a false case at you,
I wasn't a positive in society doing what I was doing at all.
Right. Wow. It sounds like, they trumped up something at you basically to target you if everything you were doing was like above board, That I can see your point. Why fight it, right?
Yeah, what was I fighting for? Something that I knew I wasn't proud of? At this age, I was like, well, I should probably be doing something more productive, something that I could be proud of. I don't see myself, even when this is all over, I don't think that I would want to go back to that industry. I think I could find much more joy and happiness doing, a million other things. And at the end of the day, as long as you have a roof over your head and food on your table, what more do you need?
Right.
We're all gonna die. Nobody's getting out of here alive.
I think you got a point there. At some point, whatever your concept is of meeting your maker, so to speak, we're going to have to deal with that, right?
Yeah. So there's no point in pulling your hair out. Just take each day, do the best you can, and try to be the best version of you. And I just, it's hard. I feel like the real issue is that there's no support, there's no resources, and I think that that's why what you're doing with FWA is so important, because actually my case is what brought me to learn about you and your history. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known anything about you.
Well, see, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm thinking, what am I forgetting? Oh, my God, what am I forgetting? The alternative sentencing program. Because with COVID right now, that's why I'm so grateful that you're doing this interview. And I want to use this interview to help us realize that as a 12-step program, and one of the reasons I chose that format was that because of the laws surrounding a 12-step format that are already in place because of Alcoholics Anonymous with their alcohol court, their DUI court, and also NA with the drug court, is that if you are brought up on charges to do with prostitution or even, pimp anatomy, jail, because I found, makers back in the 80s when we had the AIDS crisis, is that when we really don't want to put you guys in jail, but alternative. And it was actually the Attorney General of California that was up to, we have you guys to a meeting instead of jail. And I'm like, that's your career? And he goes, yeah, we're a 12-step program. I'm like, if we to jail over this, we have in jail help any person, trying to get, your transition really doesn't help. and the mentoring on our again, and then at the oh shit. Okay, sorry about that. Have I got you again?
You've got me.
Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on with the phones. I'm praying over the phones and the computer again because I have noticed there is a spiritual element to what we do, like screwing with our phone line, so maybe that'll help. And I also wanted to bring on a newcomer to maybe, like a total brand newcomer to talk to you, because what we're trying to do now is one of the biggest barriers we have, like I said, with the alternative sentencing, is that they started saying that they wanted to know our meeting locations and who was chairing the meeting, which violates our anonymity. So I have had to pull out of a lot of the alternative sentencing options just with the way things have been lately. Now with COVID, they're back to they were in the 80s where they don't want to put us in jail and they're doing everything, even the courts, by phone. So I've been stepping in going, well, if we're doing everything by phone and NA itself is doing phone meetings, then how about we step in here with phone meetings as alternative sentencing? And, we've got a really great opportunity right now, actually, with COVID, to insert these phone meetings that protects our anonymity but allows us to be more of a part of the alternative sentencing program than we were able to be in the last couple of years when things got really strange there for a while.
Yes, I agree with you on that. And I think more than anything right now, what girls need is the support, because COVID has really, really given them hard time to think, because I think the girls in the industry are probably suffering as a result. I mean, we're in the middle of a major pandemic here, so I don't think that things are flowing as usual.
No, so they're not. And I'm seeing that Dan, see, you hit on something else. We have an opportunity here that I never think we had before, because you and I both got in this mentality that the money is like an unending tap. It seems like this unending tap. It's always there. But with COVID, I'm talking to women all of a sudden hit that wall at 100 miles an hour and the club's not open, or the casino's not open, or the even the productions have shut down, and all of a sudden they're scrambling and they're realizing that, wait a minute, I don't have any safety net here. And it's that moment where we can get that intervention in them, that there's something else. You know what I mean?
Yes. And that's what everybody needs, is positivity and support, knowing that you can do it. It's up to you to put your best foot forward.
Right. Oh, I asked a newcomer to join us, but she might be having trouble logging on. Let me double check the phone real quick and see if she's logging on, because we just got a call from a brand new newcomer. She's back east, though. Hold on. Okay, well, so I'm going to give her a few more minutes, see if she can log on, because I think that's it. We get the women, so many, they don't need a lifelong program like an Alcoholics Anonymous. That's a misconception. Some people think, oh, God, that's going to mean for life. No, it's just, I found sometimes just the right phone call, gives them that inspiration that I can do this, that it's going to be worth it. And they go off, and then I hear, like you, what you've done to change your life around and become very successful is very inspiring, you know?
Well, like I said, it's just about putting your best foot forward, your next foot, your next foot, your next foot, and never looking back. But in my case, I didn't have an option. It was that or prison. So what would you do?
I know what I did when they threatened me with 8 years in prison. I got the hell out of the business.
Yeah, I think my minimum sentence I was looking at was 374 months. I don't know about you, but that didn't sound very good to me.
Oh, my Lord. Yeah. Now, this is another common barrier. Maybe you can, share what you went through is all of a sudden you hit that wall where it's prison or out, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, now what? I mean, did you have any clue? I know with me, I was so caught up in the legal system, and I got familiar with it. I just was like, maybe I'll become a paralegal, and that took off. But, I mean, did you have any idea what you wanted to do that, got you through what, you're doing now?
No, I don't think that I had much sense of direction. I had known for a while that I wasn't happy doing what I was doing, but like everybody else, I did have an exit plan. This just happened 2 years before I had planned on exiting. So, the reality in my situation was I can't focus on anything except for this legal case right now. And then once I get through this, I'll figure it all out. So it was humbling, to say the least, but I feel like I came out okay. Like, it's okay. You just have to be positive every day. Know that there's something better out there. This is not, what God intended for you. When one door opens, 3 more, when one door closes, another opens, or 3 more open. You just have to make your choices and walk through one of them. You can't stand there and look. You got to keep it moving. So all I can say to anybody who's looking to make the change is the people that you're associating yourself with that might still be in that industry, they don't want to see you make that change. So the best thing you can do is relocate, cut the toxic people out of your life because they don't want you to change.
No.
Misery
they don't.
Company. Misery loves company. So that's a big thing. And I think even it's probably the same like in Alcoholics Anonymous or like Narcotics Anonymous. They tell you can't hang out with your drunk friends and stay sober.
Right. There's this element of codependency. Because I know in our early meetings, I didn't know what we were doing in our early meetings. I just threw something together and gave it a try. I've learned. But in the very beginning, I had a real problem with the madams coming in, and all of a sudden a week later, everybody in the room was relapsing. And I started finding out that they were coming in the rooms to recruit. It seems like they're not only the people want to drag you back, but it's like the culture wants to drag you back. I couldn't believe that somebody would come in our meetings and drag 10 women out in a row, back out with them.
The women are the products. Without the women, they have no business.
Exactly. So I had to develop a different approach to the meetings than, say, an AA meeting for that reason, because I didn't know of any bartenders going into AA trying to drag them into a bar. But we have that problem, Yeah,
right.
We do have to be a little bit more protective.
But the girls were vulnerable. The girls at that time were probably very vulnerable, confused, and broke.
Yeah. Yeah.
Making, promises of grandeur when your mind is programmed, that it's about the dollar. You need money. You have to make money. That's all most girls know. Exactly.
Because that was the intervention that I saw. And understanding the difference is that this person was wooing them. And I'm trying to help them transition, but you know what? I'm not getting a piece of their action. So I'm not going to be wooing them. I'm going to say, call me when you need help. I'll help you, right? So, I had to learn that the people who had my best interest at heart were not going to be wooing me. That's another thing that I had to like mentally understand, that if somebody's, courting me, it's because they're getting something out of it, and that those tend to be the ones that now I have to be wary of,
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I don't know, you seem to have a real good head on your shoulders, but me, I was pretty screwed up. I had to like really learn who I could listen to and who not to listen to from where I came from,
Well, Jody, I think I didn't have anybody to listen to. I kind of had to figure it out on my own because I didn't have friends that I could talk to about it. I didn't have friends I could talk to about it. Nobody would even understand.
Well, that's true.
I had a totally different group of people that I hung out with that could never even picture any of that.
That must have felt, I call it the Clark Kent syndrome. Did you feel a little bit like Clark Kent and Superman sometimes with it, in that life?
No, honestly, I felt like I had a lot of guilt. I remember one time having to lie to my neighbor. My son wanted to play with the neighbor. And so, of course, the mom wants to know, well, who are you guys? And then you have to make up a lie. And I'm sorry, it was screwed up. But what was I going to tell her? What was I going to tell her? The truth? Because they would have moved out the following week.
Yeah, that's true.
What are you going to say? You can't tell people that. It's not acceptable.
Oh, wait, I think our newbie made us. Don't say anything yet, sweetie. Do you want to use a different name? Turn down the TV, because I can hear the TV in the background.
No, just people around. What name should I say?
Well, I can't hear you because the TV is going in the background. Can you turn it down?
Yeah, this is my roommate.
Okay, go in the bathroom. Go in the bathroom. That way I can hear you better. Because I was telling Crystal here that I got a newbie on the line that maybe might want to ask her some questions about whatever you're going through right now. Because you just called us the other day, so you're brand new. And it would help if people could hear kind of like what you're going through, but I can't hear you. Can you go in the bathroom or something?
Yeah, I'm in the bathroom now. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you just called us. Tell me the questions that are on your mind, to make you reach out to us for help. And I've got a woman on the line who's been out now a while from our business, and she's built up a successful business and family, and she's doing really well and mentoring others, obviously, through SWA. So what kind of questions are on your mind right now?
That I was wondering, like, how, did she, how did she stop being a madam?
How did she stop being a madam?
Yeah, how did she start?
Are you a madam? Do you consider yourself a madam? Do you work with escort, or are you an escort?
No. I don't. No.
She's coming more out of being a working girl right now, but it's the same industry, the transition.
Right.
I think she wants to know, how'd you get through the hump there?
Well, myself, I just focused on, first of all, my legal matters. That was the most important. And then once I got through that, I was like, okay, it's time for me to make real life choices, which I was never really good at. Obviously, I landed myself probably not in a good situation, but I continued to just look for positive things that interest me. And I went with it. I made a choice, and I went with it, and I stuck with it day in and day out. And it wasn't easy, and I didn't start out making great money, but I committed to it. And that's the hardest part, is staying committed. You need support. You need to get away from people that are still involved, and you have to make some sacrifices along the way. It's going to be humbling, but you'll get there. Nothing good comes easy.
And maybe creating like new people. Like, for example, I started out doing paralegal work, as I said earlier. So I joined a Legal Secretaries Association, and I started hanging out with legal secretaries and paralegals, and that's who I started going out to coffee with, and threw myself into a whole other culture, you know what I mean, around different people, and that felt really strange for a while, obviously. I don't know about you, but I had this feeling like they just knew, and I had this big neon sign on my head, but I just had to, you know, everybody feels like that, the imposter. Everybody feels that way, and I just had to just keep going, you know.
And the main thing is learning what you live. Once you remove yourself from the lifestyle of the game, you just learn what you live, and you absorb, and you watch, and then you decide, like, who you want to be, because you're like a fresh canvas. You're painting the new version of yourself.
Yeah, that's true, because in recovery, you can now become what God intended you to be when you were born. And that's what I had to stick with, is like, okay, I've been given this new life, and I can be anything I want to be, and what does that picture look like? And, you know, just going inch by inch by inch towards that picture, you know? Do you have any picture of some other person maybe that you wanted to be all this time, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think about, you know, being like a chef, you know, but I struggle really bad, you know, with the sex work. I really do, because, you know, just when it's hard, you know, and it's like you want fast money, and I've been struggling with this for like 18 years. So,
well, God, sheriffs are making incredible money, and their pensions are to die for. So, you know, I think Crystal and I can definitely maybe hook you up with some mentors on that. Because, I mean, when I saw their pensions even that you get, I mean, that's a very lucrative field to get into, and there's never a shortage of work, certainly. And your game, who knows? They might put you in the trafficking unit. Who knows these days, right?
Yeah,
no, it is true. Especially if you have knowledge. You have knowledge of this type of thing. I mean, not a lot of people have that inside knowledge. You know more than they do. You would be valuable.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, okay.
Listen, when they come out of the academy, they don't even know the first thing about us. It's so crazy how they don't know. They're like babies. They need to be trained. And, I mean, who knows? You could be in charge of training vice cops. I mean, you've got a wonderful experience to bring to them to help. We were just talking about all the girls we've seen that have been beat up by these pimps, and they need someone to help them transition out of that situation, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I've had like 10 pimps in my life, you know, and it's hard, you know, to break it, you know what I mean?
Oh, that's amazing. If you've done that and broken that, you'd be an incredible inspiration.
I haven't, because I still, like, I don't know, like I still, with this last pimp I have now, I'm still connected with him. I don't know, like, how to let go, you know. Just,
right.
It sounds definitely like you want to. If you're reaching out for help and you have questions, it sounds definitely like you want to. So then that's what your first focus should be. Don't think about the future. Think about the first step, your next best step.
Right. And you and I are going to get together tomorrow on the phone and have a nice long talk, and we'll get your game plan together. Because I know a game plan helps, you know?
Right.
But once you make that choice, you can't go back, because going back only makes it worse. Whatever it is that makes you want to leave, it's going to be 10 times worse if you go back.
Yeah, I think that, because I'm so used to having, you know, like a pimp in my life, that it's like, it feels weird, you know, not to have one. So, like, I kind of hold on to them and, you know, just And I think that
Well,
maybe
maybe
things
is
will be
it
better. I don't
possible
know.
that maybe you don't give yourself a chance to become independent, mentally independent?
And I've never really felt that way before.
Yeah.
And you know what? Honestly, this is why I'm glad to know this because,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think Crystal and I don't really share maybe certain things with you, but I do know women that have had this additional problem of breaking away from a specific pimp that's almost like a drug. And I'm going to get you some phone numbers of those women so that they can talk to you specifically about how they broke away. Because, I just have another sponsee of mine. She relapsed about a year ago. She went back to the guy. And you know what Crystal's saying about it gets worse each time? I've seen it get worse each time because when she went back to him after being out a year, she wound up in the hospital, and that was what it took finally for her to just go, okay, this is what I got to do. She actually owns a salon right now. She's got a salon in a mall where she does eyelash extensions, and she's doing fantastic because all the strippers are coming in getting their eyelash extensions with her, and she's doing fantastic, you know? So I'll probably hook you up to her and let you talk to her about that getting away from that man, you know?
Yeah, because right now,
it's the addiction. The man is the addiction because you're scared. You've never been independent. So I see that in your situation, maybe the man is your addiction.
I mean, he do too, you know. I don't know. Like the more I get beat, the more I feel attached, you know.
Right.
The more you get what?
The more he sees, the more he talks, and then it's hard. I'm having trouble hearing you, honey, so let's talk tomorrow when I can hear you better on another line. Is that okay? And I'm going to get this other woman's number, you know, that broke away from her pimp recently and connect you up to her, okay?
Can you text me her number?
Yeah, I'll talk to you in the morning, okay?
All right, thank you.
Okay, night-night.
Okay, all right. Nice to meet you. Bye-bye.
Okay, Crystal. Thank you for joining us, too. And any last words you want to say before I wrap up the recording?
No, I just want to give a little bit of positivity out there to the girls that are ready to make the transition. And if anyone needs help, support, talk, you know, you can give anyone my email address. It's totally fine. Because I think that the more unity a girl feels like she has, the more support she feels like she has, because most of them don't have family. And I think you know that. You kind of lose sight of the importance of family, or you didn't have one to begin with, and that's how you were drawn into the industry. But if there's anybody out there that needs support, I have no problem, you know, talking to somebody that needs that positive reinforcement.
Yeah, you hit on something, because either it seems like there's no family, or like mine, which was a very dysfunctional family where my mother was actually holding me back in the business. My mother actually was trying to get me back in the business till the day she died. So it was very bad family dynamic. I had to build a new family in recovery, absolutely.
Well, I tell people, you know, no matter what, whether your family is good, bad, whatever, as an adult, when you go out there on your own and you're independent, you're going to create your own family. You get to pick the people that you surround yourself with. And if you come from a toxic family, like you're saying, your mother is manipulating you for her own purpose, wanting you to be in the industry probably for her own benefit, then why would you want to deal with that daily, those pressures that she brought on and the guilt that she might have brought on? And so I think it's really inspiring, you know, for somebody to pick an outside family. You don't have to only have one family.
Right. I took great heart, you know, for those that are of a certain faith. I mean, I took great, you know, heart, so to speak, from the story of, I think it was Joseph, whose own brothers sold him into slavery. And then he rose to be like the king's right hand, and talk about breaking away from the family. I mean, I just took a lot of heart from that maybe there was a reason why I had to go through all that. And, you know, I took to that, like there was a reason why I had to go through that particular journey. And you know what I think helped is with my own daughter. My own daughter saw how I'd be setting limits with my mother, but also turning to my recovery family for the support that I needed not to go back. And so she learned a lot watching that growing up. And now any pimp get within 100 yards of her, she ain't falling for it. I mean, she's not falling for it because she's so beautiful, and they get within range of her, and she just shoots them a look. She knows the game. She is not going to fall prey to any pimp, that's for sure. You know?
That's great. That's great. She learned through watching. She didn't have to experience it.
Exactly. So
that
maybe it was
great relief.
Yeah, and my uncle, who used to be a dealer, and he went into recovery, he said that to me before I had my daughter. He said, we got to break the family cycle somewhere, kiddo. And then I look at my daughter, and you know, at the time when I didn't, but he was right. I did the work to break the cycle, and now I see that in my daughter that we broke it. And I mean, that means that everything that I went through was for a reason. I mean, I'm inspired. This woman wants to be sheriff. My God, the work she can do when she gets herself a little stronger and, you know, gets in there, she could be an incredible asset.
I just think that, you know, given the opportunity, you could be whatever you want. It's totally up to you. Like, it goes back to what I said earlier, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't. You can't. You're right.
Okay, on that note, if anybody in Nevada then, you know, wants to talk to you, is that okay? If I connect you up with them? And okay, great. Well, thank you, Crystal. All right, thank you for joining us.
Have a good night.
Talk to you soon. You too. Good night.
Bye-bye.